Welcome to Crossroads. Court documents could give more details on the assassination attempt against President Donald Trump. Now, a handwritten note from the suspect, Ryan Routh, was submitted to the court by federal prosecutors. It states this, quote, "This was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump, but I failed you. I tried my best and gave it all the gumption I could muster." Now, we're now seeing some of the more evidence come out on this case. And I think because we're seeing the evidence, we can actually kind of put together the whole situation a lot better. Let me start first with this letter. Now, this is from the official court document. It says this, quote, "On September 18th, law enforcement was contacted by a civilian witness who stated that Routh had dropped off a box at his residence several months prior. After learning of the September 15th incident at Trump International, the witness opened the box, suggesting, of course, he didn't do it beforehand, which could have meant that he knew about this whole thing and didn't report it. But they note this. The witness stated the box contained ammunition, a metal pipe, we don't know what that is, miscellaneous building materials, tools, 4 phones, and various letters. Now, we don't know the details of all of this yet. Again, if you think metal pipe, a lot of people might think a pipe bomb. We don't actually know if this was anything of that nature. They're not giving us details. We also don't know what the various letters are. They're only telling us about one of them. And it says this, "One handwritten letter addressed to the world stated, among other things, again, that this was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump." Now they say, quote, "Also, it is up to you now to finish the job, and I will offer $150,000 to whomever can complete the job." Now, what it seems this was kind of a kill switch. It seems this individual, again, submitted this to his friend or this individual months before the actual assassination attempt. And given that, of course, we would assume that, well, maybe, again, he believed he would fail. Maybe he, didn't want to do this in the first place and just wanted to write this thing. The more likely case is this was a kill switch, kind of a contingency plan if he did fail, and he'd be able to, again, send this kind of message to the world, so to speak. Given that his friend actually turned it into authorities and didn't keep it, it's not clear how well that actually worked out for him. Very likely, again, this was something he submitted with the possibility that he would fail ahead of time. Now, just some details in this court document also. This court document does not list the full breadth of evidence. The court document currently available, it's just the evidence the prosecutors submitted to support the case for pretrial detention, which they've now been granted, by the way. Ryan Routh is being held now without bail. Now, they note that the investigation is ongoing, so in addition to maybe these other letters we don't know about yet, we're going to be hearing a lot more on it. But it does give us a clearer picture of what happened on the golf course that day. Now, this is the official document. It says this, As the former president advanced through the course, a Secret Service agent was part of the overall protection detail, moved ahead of him in a golf cart, and conducted a security sweep to identify any potential threats and to ensure the safety and security of the former president along the route. And notice the perimeter of Trump International is surrounded by a chain link fence, and the southeast corner of the fence is screened by trees and brush. The 6th hole on the course is near the southeast corner, and while the former president was on the 5th hole, meaning he was pretty close to it, the agent cleared the area along the 6th hole. Again, they were one step away, right? And at approximately 1:30 p.m., the agent spotted the partially obscured face of a man in the brush along the fence line. The man was later identified, again, as Ryan Wesley Routh. Routh's position was directly in line with the 6th hole. Again, one ahead of where Trump was. And notice the agent then observed a long black object protruding through the fence and realized the object was the barrel of a rifle aimed directly at him. Meaning, again, he was pointing it at the agent, presumably. And once the agent jumped out of the golf cart, drew his weapon, and began backing away, the agent saw the rifle barrel move, suggesting they were maybe tracking him, and the agent fired at Routh. The agent took cover behind a tree, reloaded his weapon, looked up, and saw that Routh was gone. Now notice the position Routh occupied when the agent first noticed him was directly in line again with the 6th hole green. And had their agent not found him by that time, it's possible Trump would have been at that 6-hole green very soon. Again, this is important because this really shows how close this whole thing really was. Had that agent not noticed that gun, had that agent not seen the individual's face, maybe had the individual worn camouflage or painted his face, very likely, this whole thing could have ended a lot worse than it was. Now, also, interestingly, the area where Routh was allegedly at, that area, that was a known blind spot. This was actually noted during the press conference just after the assassination attempt. And apparently, like media paparazzi, they actually use that location to take photos. It gives you a pretty broad view of that whole range. And, again, this is raising some concerns over, well, maybe they should have had additional security. Maybe they should have cleared those blind spots. We know that Routh, based on, again, other reporting, was there from about 1 a.m. to 1 p.m., like 12 hours. And an individual sitting in the bushes, pretty well exposed, generally speaking, you could have spotted him with some basic security in that area, especially if they knew, again, that the area was problematic. Now, we're also getting more details on the firearm he used, and this is important. First off, he did not have an automatic AK-47, as was reported by, I think, most media. The gun he was using was a semi-automatic SKS. That's like a hunting rifle, basically, right? It had a scope and an extended magazine. Now, again, the SKS and the AK-47, these are both kind of like Russian armaments. I'm not saying they're from Russia. These are weapons of war, technically, but there's a big difference between them. If you talk about an AK-47, that's what a lot of media would say is an assault weapon, right? And if you say it's automatic, well, that brings up the whole argument of, hey, automatic weapons and how does this individual get it? When you say an SKS, you're talking about what is really more like a hunting rifle, at least the way it's used. It had a scope on it, and presumably the reason why a lot of media said it was an AK-47 was because they saw the banana clip, right? They had a clip or a magazine that, bends, right? They call them banana clips. It was very likely because of that a lot of media mistook it for an AK-47. This is important, though, because, again, with the whole gun control argument, the way that these things are normally framed, this is a fundamental difference between a hunting rifle and an assault rifle. The individual had what would technically be a hunting rifle. But also that means it was more dangerous for the purpose he was possibly using it for, right? He had a scope on it. He was probably going to shoot a longer range shot. Anybody who's shot guns before knows that AK-47s are not necessarily that accurate at longer distances, just because of the way they're built and the way that, again, they reload. But when you're dealing with an SKS, it's much more accurate. And so this would have been actually a lot more dangerous given that. Now, the document says also that a civilian who was driving in the area saw Routh run to his vehicle. It says Routh made eye contact with him, and then Routh drove off at high speeds. The witness took photos of the back of the Nissan that he was driving, reported it, and also noted part of the license plate number. And the license plate is interesting. Now, officers with Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office were then able to stop Routh's vehicle. They had him identified, they arrested him, but they found something very interesting. This is the court document. It says law enforcement discovered that the license plate on the Nissan Xterra was not registered to the Nissan Xterra. It was a different one. And it's during a search of the Nissan Xterra, FBI agents found 2 additional license plates. The agents also found 6 cell phones. One of the cell phones contained a Google search of how to travel from Palm Beach County to Mexico, suggesting he was planning to, flee the country. And the agents also found 12 pairs of gloves, a Hawaii driver's license in the defendant's name, a passport in the defendant's name, and documents including the following: a handwritten list of dates in August, September, and October 2024, and venues where the former president had appeared or was expected to be present. He had done his research on all the locations where Trump was possibly going to be. And noted a notebook with dozens of pages was also found, and it was filled with names and phone numbers pertaining to Ukraine, discussions about how to join combat on behalf of Ukraine, and notes criticizing the governments of China and Russia. Now, again, we know that Routh was, kind of a Ukrainian activist, not acting on behalf of Ukraine, but very likely because a lot of the media coverage here, he was just very, let's say, passionate about it, right? Routh was, again, actually even trying to recruit people to fight for it. He had even tried going there and enlisting himself. He couldn't get in, so he helped them with recruiting. And that's kind of the story with it. There's been videos of him coming out, talking to media, talking to Ukrainian media about why he cares about the issue. And of course, if you get somebody who's, doing petitions, trying to get people to enlist in the war, naturally you're going to have media wanting to talk to you about that. And so a lot of his media appearances were about that. Now, interestingly though, based on cell data, because, even if you turn off, and this is not that well known, even if you turn off your location tracking on your phone still tracks your location, especially because at the very least, even if you don't have a smartphone, what your phone does is it basically pings different cell towers. And so cell towers can relatively track your general position. And so as you travel, it'll connect, right? That's how you maintain a connection. Your phone reaches out and just connects to all these cell towers. It's known that based on his cellular data, that Routh traveled from Greensboro, North Carolina area to West Palm Beach, Florida on August 14th. And it notes that his phone had accessed cell towers near Trump International and the former president's residence at Mar-a-Lago from August 18th to September 15th. Now look, remember the alleged assassination attempt was on September 15th. So this means that he was in that area for a full month. And again, this is important because it means that he was scouting the area. A lot of the initial reporting was wondering, well, geez, how did he know to be at that one location when Trump just happened to be there? Based on this, he was kind of looking for Trump for maybe like a full month. And again, had a full list of all the places Trump could possibly be. We don't know the full details of this yet, but based on that, it's very likely that Routh, again, was not just there that one time. This could have been, again, more of a long-term thing. Now, interestingly, authorities also had some important parts of a book that Routh allegedly wrote. I'll be talking more about this after I come back from a quick break.
Experts agree, one of the best ways to protect against financial uncertainty is to diversify your portfolio. Learn how physical gold and silver can secure your retirement funds from today's economic challenges with a gold IRA from American Hartford Gold. You can safeguard your wealth with no penalties or taxes when you transfer your current qualifying retirement accounts. Call now and our precious metals specialists will send you a free information kit, no cost or obligation. American Hartford Gold, a trusted industry leader with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau, has a 5-star rating from thousands of happy clients. Whether you are getting physical precious metals in a gold IRA or delivered to your doorstep, we offer only the highest quality gold and silver. For your peace of mind, we also offer a no-fee buyback commitment, a low price guarantee, along with free shipping and free insurance. So don't wait. Call the number on your screen today and secure your financial future.
Welcome back. We're getting more details on the recent assassination attempt allegedly by Ryan Routh against former President Donald Trump. Now, interestingly, federal prosecutors are now looking to bring the official charges of attempted assassination. And again, these charges are against Routh, who's now, again, being held without bail. More details have been emerging what actually happened on Routh and on Routh's kind of apparent motives with this. Now, authorities also note some important parts of a book that's titled Ukraine's Unwinnable War that Routh allegedly wrote. And that book, if real, right, if it actually was from him, could actually show some of his thinking behind the alleged plot. The court documents say this: as part of this investigation, FBI agents recently reviewed a book apparently authored by Routh in February 2023, just recently kind of, and it's titled Ukraine's Unwinnable War, The Fatal Flaw of Democracy, World Abandonment, and the Global Citizen, Taiwan, Afghanistan, North Korea, World War III, and the End of Humanity. Now it says this, in the book, Routh stated that he, quote, must take part of the blame for the person that we elected for our next president that ended up being brainless, but I am man enough to say that I misjudged and made a terrible mistake, and Iran, I apologize. He said, "You are free to assassinate Trump as well as me for that error in judgment and the dismantling of the deal. No one here in the U.S. seems to have the balls to put natural selection to work, or even unnatural selection." Suggesting again, what is natural selection? Well, nature weeds out the unwanted, so to speak, or the weak, and he's suggesting that unnatural selection may be at play, suggesting maybe killing somebody, right? Again, we don't really know if that's what his motive was. We don't know if that's what he meant by that, but his words are pretty cryptic. Now, what is known is that Routh was an activist for the Ukrainian war. He allegedly tried enlisting himself to fight, but he also recruited volunteers to fight in that war. And a lot of the name he made in the media prior to this was actually through that. The document from the court, though, it also explains that in 2002, Routh was convicted in North Carolina of possessing a weapon of mass destruction. Now, the details of that, it was a binary explosive device. And if you go by the ATF website, it says this: binary explosives are prepackaged products consisting of two separate components, usually an oxidizer like ammonium nitrate and a fuel such as aluminum or another metal. And notice that ATF does not generally regulate the sale and distribution of these component chemicals, even when sold together in binary kits. However, when the binary components are combined, the resulting mixture is an explosive material subject to ATF regulatory requirements. Now, that charge for that would be a Class F felony. You could face up to 59 months in incarceration for it. And also, in 2010, Routh was convicted of multiple counts of possession of stolen goods. That would be a Class H felony with up to 39 months of incarceration. Although, again, those are previous convictions. They do show his criminal history. And what's important with that, folks, if you're a felon, what does that mean? If you're a felon, what does it mean? You cannot legally own a firearm. Now, look, we don't know how he got his gun. We don't know how, given these crimes, he was able to keep doing this. We don't know, again, full details of this because they're not even releasing all of his letters yet. The information we have is just what was submitted by prosecutors to, again, have Routh remain in pretrial detention. He's now being held without bail. Of course, I'll be giving more details on this case as information comes out. And, one last point on this. I know a lot of people say, well, say the line. He was, the FBI was watching him. That's kind of part of the law enforcement system in America. You cannot be charged with a crime you did not commit. And although we do have some kind of pre-crime type things where, for example, if you're an individual who's acting suspiciously, you might get monitored for this kind of stuff, which is usually where the FBI says that this individual is kind of on our radar. It does not mean they can arrest you. This is one of the protections you have as an American citizen. And so I know people often say, oh yeah, of course they were watching him. You can't be arrested if you haven't committed a crime. That's not how our law enforcement system works. You could suggest, hey, maybe that's a loophole. Maybe people should be arrested. I guarantee you, if you had people being arrested for crimes they didn't commit, that'd be a pretty big controversy on both sides of the aisle. It is difficult with situations like this. But again, that is an issue. You could say on the other side, well, heck, if he was reported for illegally owning a firearm, maybe they should have arrested him. Again, it goes by who you ask. A lot of people don't believe you should be arrested for firearms charges, and you shouldn't really be able to do that in the first place. Make it so people can't own a firearm. But again, it depends on where you sit in the political aisle. Given that situation, though, again, maybe this could have been prevented. Maybe this was preventable. We don't really know. We're going to get more details on this as it comes out. And again, I will be reporting on it as we get those details. In other news, I suppose we need to talk about the cats in Ohio. Now look, as you might have seen, there are conflicting reports on whether local Haitian migrants are eating people's cats. The controversy really got big after Trump said during his debate with Vice President Kamala Harris that in Ohio, the migrants were eating the cats and eating the pets of the people that live there. Now, I'll be talking more about this only on EpochTV.com. So if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, X, Rumble, There's a link in the description below. Click on that. You'll get access to the rest of this episode, as well as our whole library of shows and our hard-hitting documentaries on issues that matter, like the Chinese Communist Party's 100-year plan to defeat the United States. The CCP is one of the biggest threats to America. They're using things like propaganda, video games, entertainment, movies, culture to subvert and influence the next generation. If you'd like to find out more about the CCP's plotting against America, watch my documentary, The Final War, the 100-year plot to defeat America. You can find the link to that in the description below, and I'll show you all a trailer before we go exclusively to epochtv.com for the rest of this episode. I'll see you there.
The greatest threat facing the United States is the CCP.
The Epoch Times investigation team had studied the CCP for years, but what we uncovered was yielding evidence beyond our imagination.
With Chairman Mao, with the Prime Minister, our talks have been characterized by frankness.
The Clinton administration said, oh, don't worry about it. This will be a poison pill for China.
China's strategic goal is to make sure that the U.S. has 4 enemies, and one of them must be a terrorist group.
We are giving of our life's blood so that the Chinese Communist Party can survive and thrive.